Retirement Ceremony. I'm Lieutenant Chantel Early, your Masters of Ceremonies for today's event. Military guests will remain covered throughout the ceremony and follow my lead for salutes. During the national anthem, those not in uniform should stand facing the flag with their right hand over their heart. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the playing of our national anthem. Military members, left face, hand salute. Ready, two.
Oh, double tap.
Center face. Please be seated. We are pleased to have Jeffrey Steiger's wife, Julie, his parents, Ray and Kathy, and friends, Larry and Janice Etherton, with us today. Thank you for being here for this important day in Jeffrey's career. The military retirement ceremony is a time-honored tradition. The occasion is an acknowledgement of respect for duty, faithfully performed throughout a career of service to our nation. A successful mission requires us to look forward to be always ready. However, today, we pause to look back and recognize the contributions to our proud seagoing service by BMC Steiger during his 20-year military career. Additionally, we dedicate this ceremony to his family for the sacrifices they have made in support of his military service. Today not only marks the completion of his military career, but also the beginning of new adventures and opportunities for BMC Steiger and his family. It is now my distinct honor to introduce the presiding official for today's ceremony, Commander James O'Mara, Commanding Officer of Coast Guard Cutter Active.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. That's what my face looks like. Good to meet you for the first time, Ray and Kathy. Larry and Janice, good to see you again. Julie, it's a pleasure to see you again. This is culminating a little over 2 decades of service for Jeff sitting here. But it's not just Jeff. It's for all the shipmates that he served with. It's for his friends and his family, as Ops noted. Sorry? Oh. It's already happening. Okay, so I thought you were saying speak up a little bit. I saw the hand say, just getting ready. So there's going to be some emotions that come out, and I'm sure some of them have already started easing out, and it'll continue to go, but the reality is probably not going to set in. I talked a little bit with Chief. You know him as Jeff. To me, he's Chief. Right? Chief, you got the deck. Chief, I need you to instruct Mrs. So-and-so. Mr. So-and-so's got the helm. Could you make sure they know how to launch the boat? Chief, you got that. Chief, make sure that guy's got his hard hat on. We just did a pinning earlier this week, and we did a lot of different things, but one of them is reading the meaning of the anchor. And so just saying that word chief, means a lot to me. I got 19 years of service in, and it was always drilled into me from the very beginning the importance of the chief. The chief is the cornerstone of our leadership in any military organization. The seagoing service is chief. And Jeff Steiger lived up to that in many different ways. And I'll tell you a couple different stories. I say many different ways, not just because of the capacities or the qualifications that he possessed, that he earned and then he maintained, but because of who he is and how he is, right? And one of the things I would say about who he is, he's an honest guy. He's sometimes a brutally honest guy, and I love that about him. And I think while some people interact with him, and to his own admission, I said early on, hey Chief, what do you think the guys think here? We're thinking about maybe having you as command chief. What do you think about that? And Jeff Thompson sitting over here. We sat in that. It was a very frank and open discussion. Because to me, any chief can be a command chief. Just kind of who's the right guy, the right place, the right time. Do you want to do it? And Chief Steiger, one of the first things he said to me was like, well, I think some of the crew thinks I'm going to beep, beep. I have to bleep out what he said. But he's like, I come across a little bit abrasive sometimes, Captain. Well, that's just how I am. I'm old school. The service means a lot to me. Never said or did anything with malice in his heart. He did it because either they needed to hear it, there was a safety thing going on, and he just felt passionate about it. And I really, really appreciated that from you, Chief. That's part of who he is, how he is, how he gets by. I mean, you think about just what our country and what our nation has gone through the last couple months, pulls out the resilience card. How resilient are you? How persistent can you be? Can you keep showing up for work each day? Showing up for work is one thing, but coming out of the rack for the mid-watch, getting your coffee, getting your uniform on, doing a round of the ship when we're rocking and rolling, 15 degrees, getting pounded. It's either cold outside or you go down south, it's hot outside, very hot and humid. You've got to go up, and you're going to hear a little bit about this later, but you've got to go up and stand the watch. And there's a very specific poem and reading that we have about standing the watch. Chief John Lee is going to read that to you later. But he didn't just show up for work, he kept showing up, scaling the ladders. I offer my relief and stand in the watch. I stand relieved. I offer my relief. I stand relieved. Over and over again, Chief Steiger stood the watch. He's been doing it for over 2 decades now. I've been through a couple presidents, been through a lot of different things. You've seen our federal government evolve. You've seen the Coast Guard evolve. When Jeff Steiger came in, we didn't have maritime safety and security teams, MSS teams. Didn't exist. Now they're second nature. We didn't have sectors. The word sector didn't exist. We had MSOs, Marine Safety Offices, and we had Integrated Support Commands, MSOs and ISCs. Now we got sectors. We didn't have Department of Homeland Security. That didn't exist, right? We exist as now the primary and one of the principal federal agencies in an entire department that just didn't exist. Nobody thought to make it. Nobody thought to make it so. But the events of 9/11 changed all that. We didn't have national security cutters. We didn't have fast response cutters. We didn't have unmanned systems. They were out there in the world, but we didn't have them integrated in our line of work. All those things, the services changes, Jeff Steiger's seen. Jeff has changed undoubtedly along the way. I'm not sure how much this last tour has been a formative, a capstone, how much more you've changed, evolved in your way of thinking. I'm sure you're going to share a little bit of that with us. But I would say this. I didn't see a lot of inconsistency. I didn't see any. I saw consistency here. So whether you were changing personal and professional behind the scenes, one thing that was consistent was you being the honest chief that I could expect and depend upon. The honest chief to stand the watch. And when I think of guys I want training future junior officers of the deck, underway officers of the deck, and whether it's customs and courtesies, ceremonies, and especially bridge resource management, which is basically how the team works together to keep the ship safe. This is the guy that I'd be turning to. This is the guy who you want, hey, who's going to be coaching today? And we have to rotate around. I mean, Ops has to get her time to coach the junior officers. XO has to get her time. But Chief was always there. Whenever we called him, he was ready to go. We did the first astern fueling at sea with a national security cutter. It's first ever between this ship has been around. It was built in '66. It's been doing the mission for over half a century. National Security Cutter's been around for about a decade. Nobody has either thought or wanted to try to test this. And we were talking about doing an underway refueling with a Navy ship. Who do you think I called out on the forecastle to ask for help? I asked the BMCs. You get John Lee out there, Jeff Steiger. You get Chief Daniels, who's our MKC. You get the chiefs, because they know they'll tell you that ain't going to work. Or it could work, but if you want to make sure it's going to be done safe, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. Even in my wardroom guidance to our officers, one of the things that I stress is know the who, what, where, when, and why. All of the W's. Everybody's heard that. But the how, I think I say 5 times in there. You got to talk to the chiefs. How you get things done matters almost always more than what's getting done. And so that's what I talk about. The very first thing I led off with was how Jeff Steiger is, who he is. He's honest. He'll tell you how it is, when it is. But he also needs the time and the place. Sometimes you can get that, raise the pulses, and you can kind of give a look, and you go, all right. He's also old school, and he knows, there's time and a place, and decorum. But when we get the O's and the chiefs together, it's assumed that is the time and the place. And if he needs to let you have it, he'll let you have it. And he's, as I said, he's doing it from a place in his heart and his head that, to me, I never had any confidence issues, never lack of confidence, never issues with consistency, because I knew he would always level with me. And that's what I want and expect from a chief. That's what any commanding officer, any shipmate should want and expect from a chief. And you gave it. You gave it for the last 2 decades, Jeff, and we're all very, very proud of you. I wanted to say a couple other things, though, to Mrs. Steiger, to Julie. Now, this has got to be exciting as much as it is maybe scary. Hey, what are you going to do now? He's not deploying with training team East. He's not deploying with active. He's not going on duty. You look at all these years of service, right? Or an icebreaker, then a station, then to active, and then to the trade team, and then back to active, Port Andrews rather, and then to active. This is his home. Not only your home, but your home in terms of operations. And now here you are, you're home. You're finally, you can say, honey, I'm home. And we talked about this a little bit in the P-Way and last patrol. When does it become real? To the people that PCS, the permanent change of station, it usually is not real until they're driving cross country, until they get on the plane, they look out the window, they hear that. It triggers for different people at different times, but I'm not sure when it's going to become real for Jeff and Julie. But you should be proud. Be very proud, just as much as we are, and I know you are. I can see it in your face. So I want to make sure we keep this moving along. But Chief, after 2 decades of service, let me be one of the first again to say on heartfelt thanks on behalf of the Coast Guard and a grateful nation. Thank you for your service to our country, service to the Coast Guard, and for holding the bar, for holding the standard the way that you did, and to me personally, for leveling with, let me have it when I need it, and telling me how it is. That's what I always wanted and expected of a chief, and you never, ever let me down on that. I'll respect you.
Chief, if you could join Captain up front so we can recognize you more formally. Military guest, attention to award. Citation to accompany the award of the Coast Guard Achievement Medal, Gold Star in lieu of a third, to Jeffrey Steiger, Chief Boatswain's Mate, United States Coast Guard. Chief Petty Officer Steiger is cited for superior performance of duty while serving on board Coast Guard Cutter Active from June 2016 to June 2020, culminating 20 years of dedicated service. As Operations Department Chief, he led safe navigation during 11 patrols and over 110,000 nautical miles. As Officer of the Deck, he oversaw a 93 counter-narcotics boardings, embarked 100 detainees, seized 11,163 kilograms of cocaine